What came first, the egg or the chicken?
Oh man, it had to have been the chicken. Had to have been. There had to have been some sort of pre-chicken creature that gave birth or had an egg. Well, no, maybe it was the egg then. Okay, I'm gonna change my answer.
I say
It's a genetically mutated creature within an egg. Therefore, it's the egg. There you go. That's my official answer.
as your answer as a biologist
Yeah.
teacher.
I mean, yeah, for sure. What we have to, what we call a modern chicken, evolved from the red jungle fowl in Africa, and so, a series of genetic changes happen at conception and go into an egg. So I would say the egg.
By the way, for people that don't know him, this is Allan Rainey, and he is a biologist teacher.
Yeah, I
That's
teach biology and environmental science. I was a wildlife biologist beforehand. My degrees are in forestry and wildlife, and in education. I'm going to start my master's and probably PhD at some point. I've just got so much more to learn. I love I love learning new things. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
What got you into that? What got you into that?
Education or forestry and wildlife?
You were a teacher later,
Mm-hmm.
like in life, so I want to start with like wildlife and that sort of stuff.
Both my parents are engineers and worked on, one of them's mechanical, the other one's civil, and they worked on these giant construction projects in either custom homes or huge skyscraper buildings and things like that. And I'm sure that you guys did too. You go with your parents to work, right? Construction sites are ugly and they're dirty and they're there's a barren. They just look like a bomb went off, and it's just desolate, gross thing.
I did that last year. It was
Yeah.
last summer.
Yeah, so construction sites are nasty, right?
And like living, you lived here in Texas your whole life, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so like even here in Texas, it's hot as fuck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And particularly on a construction site, everybody smells. It's nasty. And there's trash everywhere and stuff. And that was my sort of initial like perception of human development, right? Like everywhere mankind is, there's this, and it's gross. And so my parents are from Mississippi, and both of them grew up in these very rural areas. And so when we went to visit the rest of the family, I spent all of my time out in the woods and in ponds and rivers and creeks and everything like that. And that was my happy place. That seemed at peace. It wasn't these loud, huge construction machines and garbage and the smells of sweat and diesel and everything like that. It was this much more beautiful, serene place. And so I really wanted to dedicate my life to those places and those beautiful things. It was just so much more real to me and so much more important to me than giant buildings or whatever. It just wasn't important. It was gross.
So how old are you whenever you decided you wanted to go down that path instead of
Oh man,
buildings and that stuff?
I guess I didn't really think about a career probably until I was probably 16 or 17 years old, I'd say. And I was at Creekview High School right up the street, and went to they have this like college open house kind of thing where there's
Get
loads.
a little closer to the
Yeah,
mic.
sorry.
Yeah.
There's loads of universities that come out and show off for their programs and everything else. And I was talking to these colleges about my interest in the things that I really love and care about, and things that I know about. I had taken almost every science class that I could take, and I was in Boy Scouts. I'd taken every nature merit badge that they had, and like 4 or 5 other colleges were like, "Yeah, you should study forestry. You don't belong here. You should go do forestry." And other colleges pointed me to SFA forestry, and I remember walking up to the SFA table and being like, "Everyone tells me I should go here, so how about I go here? How's that?" And that was where it started. Was that information packet at Creekview High School.
Really? So you're a freshman, like at SFA, like you did your things. How did you feel?
I remember the feeling when they send you a letter and they tell you to bring waterproof paper. And I had no idea that waterproof paper was a thing.
How
Yeah, it's
how
like
do you do that?
but you can only write on a pencil. It's really interesting stuff. Anyway, they tell you to read a book. It's called Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold. It's probably one of the best things I've ever read. and to bring waterproof paper and be ready to, you have to have a jacket and stuff and be ready to be outside. And it was like going to Hogwarts. You know what I mean? Got to have your wand and your cloak and everything like that. And
Did you get on a little train that goes?
well, man, like just about it. SFA Forestry is a really interesting place. And so I remember I got all these things and I went down there, and most college buildings are really sterile. It's just sort of industrial carpet and white paint, and it's gross. And you go to SFA Forestry and there's these huge ancient saw blades on the walls and elk heads and fish like that, and all this history. And you're like, what kind of place is this? What? It's this magical place of all this history and all these insane objects where you're looking at everything and you're just trying to take it all in, and it's fascinating. So I remember being a freshman and thinking, not only I felt like I belonged, but I also felt that there was this huge history of really awesome people that came before me, that I was like, man, I hope I'm worth this. I hope I'm worthy of all this. I'm good enough to be part of this.
That sounds interesting, because for people that don't know SFA is, that's like in the middle of nowhere.
It's in the middle of the woods. Yeah.
It's like trees, and that's about it for like
yes,
miles or kilometers.
That's right. You just miles and miles of pine trees and ponds and creeks. And when I went there, they've cut down some of the trees to make room because the school's bigger now. But I remember going there, and it's literally like in a forest. I mean, there's 100-foot tall pine trees on campus. And it's really neat. You're going to pass squirrels and raccoons and junk on campus, which is wild. And growing up here in Dallas, and I grew up right off of Jackson Road over there,
That's in Dallas. People don't know.
Yeah, and so, it's as far from wildlife as you can get. There's the tallest trees are like 20 feet tall, So when you go to the SFA campus and you walk past a tree that's bigger than this desk in diameter and 110 feet tall, and, it's got a hawk living in it, you're like, man, I'm home. This is fantastic. It's like living in Pocahontas, the movie, It's cool.
This sounds really interesting. Like,
it is.
All of that.
That's
a
neat
like
place.
The waterproof paper.
Yeah, and so check this out. Like I remember so you have labs, and so when you guys were all in high school, when I was in high school, you go lab, it's like the back of the room, and there's like a sink, and that's as hardcore as it's gonna get. Maybe a Bunsen burner, right? And that's as dope as it's gonna get.
Pretty much.
Turn on the Bunsen burner, whoop. Right. Well, the reason you have waterproof paper is because you're going to take notes. Rain, shine, sleet, hail, whatever. You're out there in the classes in the woods, right? And so I mean, there were many occasions where I filled up multiple things of waterproof paper because the professor was out there in the woods, in the bush teaching in the middle of the rain, in a rainstorm, and you're sitting there taking notes on your waterproof paper. It's no joke. It's immersion. Like, we're not just going to learn about the woods. You're in the woods. You are the woods, and learn about it or change majors.
Like that meme that it's like the coach, it's like the flooded field.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what it sounds
exactly.
like right now.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, we're still having practice.
One of the best lessons I ever got, no joke, my professor was like waist deep in a creek at the time. What? And it was a great lesson. And there were times in school where I ended up, so I got married while I was in college. You know what? When you tell your wife, my waders are wet. And that's just a normal classroom thing to say. Other people are like, I'm out of chewing gum. And I'm like, I got hailed on. Oops. It's just different. It's a different classroom experience. I wish I could teach like that. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be cool because I'm a kinetic learner. Mm-hmm. So I have to actually do the thing.
For sure. And your senses are tied to memory in a really, really powerful way. Scent and taste. And so when you're out in the woods and you can smell the pine trees and you can feel the wind and those memories become so vivid. Like there are lessons that I'll never forget, and part of the reason I will never forget them is because of all the other senses that you're getting in the woods. If I gave you a really good lesson in 40 degrees in the rain, you'd never forget it, right? Just because you never forget that experience. And that's exactly the way we had to do like a class play one time where we had to act out what it's like to like the life cycle of southern pine beetles. And that sounds kind of hokey.
In college?
Yeah, in college, absolutely. But you had to do it in the forest. And no joke, it might have been 40, 45 degrees. and like driving rain. It was freezing.
Damn.
It was incredibly uncomfortable. And then you're trying to like be a beetle. You know what I mean? But so you never forget that experience.
Yeah, you won't.
And it was one of the best lessons I've ever been through, just because I was so horribly uncomfortable. You're so far out of your comfort zone. You can't forget that.
Oh, you definitely won't. I just feel like that's a problem with public education, because I mean, you're a public educator,
Yeah.
and they teach you the theory, but
Yeah.
not the actual experience. Like,
There's a lot of reasons for that, and every teacher would love to give you
what do you think that is?
size, just pure size. I mean, in college, I started college with 100 people. You know, in my major, that my cohort was 100 people, and college doesn't have to educate everybody in town, or high school does, right? We have to educate absolutely everyone, and you know, like for instance, Turner High School. I mean, we're running over 2,000 kids. We only have, I think we got 160 teachers. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, there's so many kids. We got pressures from the state. We got pressures from the school board. We got pressures just in time. We only have 187 educational days. You know, college gets you for 4 years, whereas I only get you for 187 educational days, and I've got to get you ready for a state test that's like 2 months before the end of school, right? So I have to teach you this colossal amount of information to 150 kids in just a little bit of time at 50 minutes at a time. I can't say, you know what, we're going to be out all afternoon, and you know, then next year I'll teach you something else. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just the
So
sheer
like
scope.
get the same, like, if you're a professor in a university, you get the same people for 4 years.
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. That's correct. You get a very small group that you can really invest in for, you know, a much longer period of
For
time.
4 years.
Right. And public high school anyway, just has the sheer scope of public high school is huge, and the demands on public high school are huge, and so we can't give you those kind of rich experiences. And the other thing is money. You know, when each student pays in thousands of dollars to do something, then we get to have a lot more field trips and things like that. But that's not the way public school works. That's the way public education works. You know, Title I high schools, we're running over 80% free and reduced lunch. You know, the vast majority of our students are below the poverty line. So we can't say, everyone bring your 10,000. We got a fun year plan. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that in public school. So I think every teacher at Title I, I've only worked at poor high schools, Title I high schools, and I think we have some of the best teachers in the state. We got teachers that really love kids, really love the material, but there's only so much we can do.
Yeah,
you know?
but there's also always like that other bunch that really only focus on the bad kids.
Totally. Yeah.
Because you have, like, for example, even my younger brother was talking about that, how he can't go to a counselor because they're walking in the halls, make sure girls are wearing like appropriate size shorts or whatever it is.
Right.
Instead of being in their office, like getting
Helping
kids,
those
like
kids
helping them out, like look for scholarships, get enrolled into college classes, whatever it is.
That's absolutely true.
Why do you think that is?
It's that age old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And like, for instance, in your house, if you've got foundation problems, you're not going to focus on the really cute bathroom, right? You're going to try to deal with that problem. That's just the way we are. We're a fix-it organism. You know, we want to focus on the problems and try to find solution. And what we have a tendency to not focus on the really bright spots. And even in your own life, look at people that are overweight. Do they fixate on that they have a great personality, or do they fixate on their weight? Right? They think, I've got to lose weight. I've got to lose weight. Right? And that's what we do. Like every single one of us, even within our own body, our own mind, we focus on the problems, or what we think are the problems. Right? And we invest our energy trying to fix these things that we feel like are wrong. And public school is run by humans, and so that's the way the entity of public school will work, just like
in theory it will work.
Right. It works like the human mind. We focus on these things that are problems, and we try to deal with it. And so a lot of our really bright moments and a lot of our really bright kids kind of slip through the cracks, right? they don't get the relationships and the investment that they need because they weren't a problem.
Yeah, it's like this one quote that's about goalkeepers. 'Cause I used to play soccer. It's like you can make 20 saves in a game, but
Right,
everyone
the
will,
one that got through.
the one goal. Like,
That's right.
Everyone won't forget.
It's the problem that everyone forgets or remembers, right? No, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's the one thing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate about our mind. We focus on negatives.
Yeah, we really do. Like, I'm an optimistic person, but even then, every once in a while, I just...
Right, it sticks in your mind.
Yeah,
right?
it does.
You guys, anybody on the street, name 5 things that are wrong with you. Right, 5 things you hate about yourself. Every single person has an answer for you.
Right.
And I mean, children. I mean, even little bitty kids can tell you stuff that they don't like about themselves or they perceive as wrong with them. Right.
Do you think it's the way we're brought up?
No, I think it's a survival. It's a survival mechanism, right? And I think that if you could interview a squirrel would tell you the same thing. We focus on those things that we perceive to be a problem. Where is the shelter at? Where's the shade at? How am I going to deal with the heat today? How am I going to deal with clean water today? How am I going to get food today? We're problem solvers, right? But in order to be a problem solving organism, you have to identify problems. And so that's just our evolutionary baseline, is to find the problems and try to deal with it.
So it would be like other... So you don't really think stress as just anything that's living?
Right. I think that's just a byproduct of evolution, is that we really struggle to focus on success and focus on problems.
Yeah,
on
it
failures.
is, 'cause like you said, if you're out in the savannah, like
Right.
you're going to run to like find something, or else you'll get eaten by a lion.
That's right. You're not going to find yourself a mirror and be like, man, I'm pretty. I'm gonna sit here and just chill on my face right now. No, you're going to, like, I got to deal with water. I got to deal with shade. I got to deal with friggin' lions, right? You've got problems to deal with, and you're going to focus on that.
That's crazy, because, like, there's even been evolution talk recently, and how schools don't teach that.
Right.
I don't know, that's just crazy.
It's such a huge topic. Where does life come from? I've even... I was watching an episode of Ancient Aliens the other day, and as kooky as that show is, it's okay to entertain ideas, right? It's okay to entertain other concepts of where we're from, or where life is from, or maybe there's life on other planets. What's threatening about that, right? It's just a conversation. We're not telling you that you are an alien. Well, even if you are, neat, right? Like, I don't understand the way people...
The debate.
Right. Why are you threatened by ideas? You know what I'm saying? It's just a concept to discuss in class. And yeah, and that's the reason, like I told you, when I teach biology, I'm not... I don't know who created the idea that science and religion have to be mutually exclusive, or if you learn about biology, it's somehow... or learn about evolution, that somehow it's anti-Christian or whatever. It doesn't have to be like that. I'm not threatening anybody's faith. I don't tell anybody that God's not real. I'm just teaching you what the concept is. And you come to your own conclusion.
But the religious people would say the same thing.
Well, I am a religious person, but I'm not threatened by the concept of evolution. Like if another person is an atheist and says God isn't real, that doesn't threaten me. That doesn't mean I...
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's not like glitter, like it's going to come off of you and stick to me. It's not... You know what I'm saying? I'm not threatened by that. Like, if you're a religious person, you believe in Allah or Buddha or whatever, like, cool, man. Like, I hope you find your best self in your faith, right?
Right.
I'm not telling you God isn't real, or that Buddha's not real, or Allah's not real. That's up to you. That's your own journey, man. Like,
individualism.
Yeah.
That's also another thing I believe that public schools take away from us.
Totally. Well, we have to. If I've got 40 kids in a class, I can't individually discuss every single idea with all of you, right? All of you are going to take a STAR test. So I have to teach all of you what's on that test. That's just a reality, right? And when we get rid of all tests, and, biology class is now retitled Everyone's Journey Through Life. You know what I'm saying? Then I can teach all of you individually and hear from you individually. But that's like in my AP classes, I can really be much more individualistic, and I can write assignments where I tell kids, just tell me what you think. Tell me what you feel. And I have 100 kids, and I'll get 100 different answers.
Right.
Right? But what I'm grading for is individual thought. I want to see that you thought, you formulated an opinion, you backed up your opinion, and you have real ideas. And I can give a grade for that in an elective science class, but in a core tested,
class.
right, star tested class, I have to teach you what's on the test. That's just the reality of the situation. That's the boat you're in, right? Because if I just completely ignore the test and my test scores go down, it negatively affects the school and school funding, and then it's bad for everyone.
Yeah, that's also not a thing. I mean, right now I'm talking like a lot of negative things about the school system. That's just the way how I feel. Like standardized tests.
Yeah.
Like it's like.
Yeah.
Like most of the school year is focused on like that one test that you can take, and like even there's a lot of people, including myself, that you have like a big test or something, like I'll get anxiety, I'll probably shut down or whatever, and there's a lot of kids that are affected by that, and they'll look down upon because they probably got like perfect hundreds on every other test. They turned everything in, but that one test that they just
test anxiety is is an absolutely real thing, and particularly at schools where you got a lot of kids in poverty, right? A lot of kids that come to us are struggling with the language. They're struggling with a myriad of different things: food, light, access to electricity, even whether the AC's on in the house. They have like real issues that's keeping their stress level up here. And then when you take that kid that's already at stress level 9 and you say, by the way, there's this test, that's 60 questions long, written in English, which is not your first language, and if you don't pass it, you're a failure forever. You don't graduate from high school, right? And then all these doors shut in your face. You'll never go to college. You'll never be anything. Hope you're not worried, right? Of course you're going to be worried. Now we're at stress level 10, right? And so, and that's the case for not like 5 or 10 kids. That's the case for like 1,000 kids, all in the same school, right? And frankly, in my career, when I started, I actually started as a test coach at Carthage High School. I was doing tax prep and teaching biology at the same time. And one of the things I was teaching kids that had already failed, right? And they were taking it for a second time. And one of the things I figured out, all those kids were so worried. No kid wakes up and says, I'm going to be a failure today. Of course they want to pass the test, right? Of course they want to pass the test. But there's this feeling of, I'll never do it. I can't do it. I've got all these other things. My reading level's not high enough. And they just feel defeated already. And the best way to make an impact in that kid's life is to coach the test. And that's the reason I take it so seriously with my freshmen. I tell them, I hate standardized testing. And so what we're going to do together is we're going to beat that test. For the last 3 years, I've had 97% passing or better at a Title I high school. You really won't get much better than that, right?
Yeah.
And because I tell them, I want you to beat this test. This is not a chore for me. I hate that we have to do standardized testing. So what we're going to do is we're going to beat it, right? It's no different than if I took you out of your career and was like, by the way, in 6 months from now, you're going to have to like fight a lion. You'd be like, oh my God, well, that sucks, right? But so what you need from your teacher is to say, I'm going to teach you lion fighting 101. We will beat that lion, and that's the way I teach. So yeah, do I teach the test? Absolutely. But it's because I love kids.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're loved like in the school, even if like everyone knows you,
right?
Regardless if they've ever taken your class or not, like they'll know you for the person you are.
I'll tell you what teaching is about this, and I'll give credit where credit is due. Matt Warnock told me this. When I was considering being a teacher, I called him, and I was like, do you think I should be a teacher? And yes, absolutely. And he said, it's all about relationships. Don't worry about, you'll learn biology and how to teach the TEKS and the TACs and the readiness standards and all that other good stuff. It's all about relationships. You know what I mean? If you care about kids and love kids, everything's going to be fine. And that's what I've done for the last 12 years. I try to just think about how do I put myself aside and do what's best for kids and love on kids. And so there are all things, there's things that I do, like you see me in class, I give compliments to kids when they get new shoes, right? I notice those things. If kids get new shoes, and that's important. How many people get compliments, just random compliments these days? That stuff's really important. Or a kid that has been a failure shows up on time. Hey, man. Hey, you're here. Glad you're here. Cool, man. And those little investments is what makes great public education, right? Ask anybody on the street. Ask anybody in this room. Was there a teacher that made an impact on your life? Yes, I can name mine. And where I'm still friends with them. Darcy Peralt, Matt Warnock, John Johnson. I know them. I shake their hands every year because they had a positive impact on my life. Do I remember every test and quiz? No. And like Miss Peralt was my English teacher. I really didn't like her class. Not because she's a great teacher, but because we had to read this stupid book called Ethan Frome. I hate that book. But whatever, you know what I mean? Like the content I wasn't wild about, but I knew that she loved me and cared about me, and she wanted me to write better, and she wanted me to spell better and use words correctly because I'm terrible at that. So I knew that she cared about me, even though I hated English. And I'm sure that I was a huge butt in her class, but it was about her relationship, and she's still teaching. She still works for CFP.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So is John Johnson. John Johnson's been teaching. He was my freshman science teacher. No. Sophomore science teacher. He was my biology teacher. And he's been teaching for over 35 years. He's a hell of a guy.
Wow.
Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the same way I felt about you. Because we had
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's what I try to do. That's what this job's about, man. Is loving people.
So what got you into this? Because you said you majored in forestry, so
right.
like wildlife. What got you from that
to teaching?
To teaching?
Oh man, it's a heck of a story.
Go for it.
Okay, so 2007, 2008, there was a huge recession, right? And the project that I was working on at the time was partially financed by the state of Texas and partially financed by wealthy contributors, right? So we worked on these high fence ranches that are owned by very, very wealthy people. And when stock prices and things like that start to really, the economy takes a huge dive, then wealthy people tend to protect their assets. They pull out of things that are kind of frivolous, extraneous. And these big high fence ranches are more like a toy, right, for the ultra wealthy.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they fire everybody and shut the ranch down. And they cut the overhead cost, right? And then when the economy comes back, they just hire new people, right? Well, I kind of got caught up in that, and that's great if you're a multimillionaire. It's a problem when you're 23 and you have a baby on the way, So I was supposed to have a 5-year job, and it was.
Was it a contract?
No, it was just hired. But I mean, the duration of this project was going to be 5 years, right? So it was supposed to be at least 5 years on the job, like a guaranteed job for that period of time. And
so it was 07. It was right before the recession.
Let's see, I think it was 07. Yeah, that's right. And my boss called me and said, in 30 days, you're losing your job. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do?
So that was the year after.
Yeah, and so I was really depressed. I was really.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, yeah, I got a baby that could be due any minute, and I'm about to lose my job, right? And I was down. I was really, really down because I really believed this is what I was supposed to do with my life. And I'd gone to get ice cream. It was cherry fudge truffle.
That's a great way to.
Yeah, to drown your sorrows, right?
Yeah,
And I was going to get this ice cream. It was a little pint of ice cream, and there was only one pint of it left. And there was another guy reaching for the same ice cream at the same moment, and I almost was like, like jumped in front of him to get the ice cream, But I was like, nah, I don't know what he's going through. And I was like, tough day, man. He's like, yeah, I'm really trying to hire science teachers, and I just can't find anybody to teach biology. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm the superintendent of a school district, and I just, I got all my staff positions filled, but there's just nobody to teach biology. And I was like, hope you fix that problem. And I just ran off because I swore I'd never be a teacher.
Did you get the ice cream at least?
No, I didn't get the ice cream. I let him have the ice cream. And so it was just such a weird experience. And I went home. I went to my wife was working in a print store at the time, and she knew that I was losing my job, of course. And I started to tell her about what had happened to me buying ice cream, and she was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a teacher?" And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, there was a principal in here making copies, like trying to find science teachers." I was like, "This is nuts. What is going on?" Right? And then I think it was the next day, there was a Boy Scout troop that wanted me to do like a nature walk for the kids. It was like a 10-mile hike, and the scoutmaster was fine with getting them there and getting them on the hike and everything, but he didn't know anything about the plants and animals of East Texas. He's like, "Hey, I know you were in Boy Scouts. Will you come teach these scouts?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd be happy to." And so we're doing this hike, and I'm teaching the kids about the trees and water and how water works in an ecosystem and everything like that. And he says, "Allan, I believe God's calling you to be a teacher." And I was like, no, you heard wrong. You got that phone call mixed up, man. That was for somebody else. And then I went on and taught for a little bit. He's like, "Allan, I believe you're supposed to be a teacher." And I was like, no, I don't know about all that. And this kept happening. It kept going on and on and on.
It is weird that you're being in denial, even
Yes.
though you didn't have a job.
Well, man, I'm going to tell you what. Everyone should make plans in life, but the one thing you can plan on is that God does not agree with your plan. You know what I mean? Like, that there's a different plan that's not yours. But anyway, so in discussion with my wife was like, "Maybe you should apply to be a teacher." I was like, "Man, I don't know anything about teaching. I don't know anything about public school. I don't know what would I do, right? I've never had any training on classroom or anything like that." And she's like, "Well, just go take the content exam and see how you do." So I took the content exam, and I got like a 95 or something on the content exam. Like, it was a breeze. And there's another exam you have to take, that's the classroom portion, right? And that's for education majors. That's for people like who've been taught about the classroom and student teachers and stuff like that. I didn't do any of that. So I expected to fail. I walked in and got a 90 on that. I was like, "Oh, geez. Now I got no excuse," right? So I sent out 5 resumes for teaching jobs, which I had no qualifications for. And I got 5 interviews in 5 days. And the first interview I went to, the principal wasn't there. The second interview, I got the job. And I've been a teacher ever since. So it was just, everything just fell into place. You know what I mean? And in the middle of a recession, like when there was people that just could not find work. I couldn't find work. I've been looking for work with all the forestry companies and paper companies and stuff like that, and I couldn't find any work. And when I submitted to my calling of being a teacher, it instantly just happened right away. So it was a really, really interesting story.
Yeah, it does sound really interesting.
Yeah. It's crazy how things fall in line when you're doing the thing you're supposed to do.
And just another thing that, again, going back to like public education, they expect you to have your life figured out at 18 years old, at like 16, 17, 18 years old.
Right. Well,
like they make you have to do this, you have to know what you want to do in life, you have to study in whatever.
Yeah.
And in a way, I mean, yeah, you want to study what you want, because if then school's going to be miserable.
Mm-hmm. But you have to have some kind of plan.
Yeah, but then again, what do you know at 16, 17
Nothing.
years old?
Yeah, you don't know anything. But you have to have some kind of plan. And a lot of the reason we ask kids to at least be thinking about that stuff is also motivation, right? If you don't have, like, I want to be a blank, whatever that is, then it's really hard to stay motivated, right? It's like if you go to the gym, and if you haven't thought about why you're going to the gym, if it's not weight loss, if it's not bodybuilding, if it's not strength, well, what are you here for, right? If you haven't thought about being a professor or being a writer or being a business professional or whatever, then what are you doing in school, right? You have to have some motivation. What? Is he pulling his abs out over here?
Yeah, they are.
Abs, right? Abs are for little kids. It's all about traps when you're a grown man. It's all about traps. Anybody can have abs. You can get abs by eating less, but the only way to get traps is picking up heavy weight. It's all about traps. Yeah, look at you trying to do something with your traps right now.
Yeah, so all right, so you explained your wildlife. Oh no, you do. I'm just gonna keep talking, but you explained about your like wildlife and your teaching. I know you're also into fitness.
Oh yeah, big time, and that was why. Like, I used to be super duper fat. I was turbo fat.
I'll probably show a picture on the.
I'll give you some pictures. But no, I used to be pretty big. I'm only 5'7", and I got up to 250 pounds, wearing size 40 pants. Yeah, and not like a muscular 250 pounds either. Just a flabby, just man, it's bad. And there's a lot of reasons for that. When you're in college and you're when you're a kid, well, first of all, when you're a kid, you can eat anything, right? You can eat the pizzas and you can eat ice cream and stuff like that. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s when we really didn't know anything. The public didn't know much about diabetes, heart disease, cholesterol, stuff like that.
Weren't there still commercials back then about cigarettes and like trying?
Everybody smoked in the 80s. Everybody smoked. All the restaurants had smoking sections and stuff like that. I mean, everybody smoked. And I remember a time when in the mid 80s, like people smoked at my dad's office. Like you would go, like they take your kid to work day, and kids and people had ashtrays on their desks and stuff like that, and everybody smoked, and everybody ate like crap. Right? You eat whatever you want, and people had heart attacks when they were like 50, but that was just commonplace. Nobody really thought much of it, right?
Do you think it was the technology that was back then compared to today, or what do you think
what do you
was? Because now you have like all these things, even on your phone. It'll like your like the smartwatches. You can check your heart rate, whatever it is. Like you have your doctor on your phone now.
Yeah, the world. Yeah, it was way before WebMDs, before the internet, right?
Oh yeah.
And so public information. Well, first of all, the science just wasn't done. Like we didn't know. Nobody knew, right? The science. There's been so much science since 1984, when I was born, to the present about health and fitness and exercise. I mean, a colossal amount of research done.
Science overall, really.
Oh yeah, yeah. What we call in science, they call the body of knowledge, right? Just what is known has increased exponentially since in my lifetime. It's increased in your lifetime, right? Yes. How much we know. Like imagine how much we've learned about the environment, our computers, programming language, robotics, even in your lifetime, right?
AI.
Yeah, right. And so when I was a kid, you grow up eating a certain way and drinking sodas. We drank sodas all the time, and that was just commonplace. And of course, as you get older, your metabolism slows down, and you're not running and playing baseball. You're not playing basketball anymore. You're sitting at a desk and studying, and so your weight goes up, right? And I ate pizza and sodas and ice cream and everything else, and then eventually that turns into beer and pizza and ice cream, and you just get fat. Right? And it's not that I was lazy. It's just that I was focused on my career and my college and everything else. We don't have manual labor jobs anymore. I was full blown academic, and so I wasn't swinging a hammer any day, burning that off. I was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time I was 30, I had kids, and it was a struggle to do dad things. Like I couldn't just run and go play with the kids, and just run around with the kids all the time and everything else. And I was sick all the time. I had a cough. I had this like respiratory infection for months because my body wouldn't heal, and I was like, I am too young for this. Right. And I remember sitting on the couch with my dad, and my dad was in his 60s and I was 30, and we were talking about the same problems, like, oh, my back hurts, my knee hurts. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm 30. And I'm sitting here with a 60-year-old man. We're talking about how our backs hurt. Like, unacceptable, right? And so I decided I was going to change my life. I decided I was going to lose the weight. And I owe a lot of this to a fellow named Coach Kinman, who worked down the hall for me at the time. And I told him, I wasn't a high school athlete, was never a varsity athlete or anything like that. I've never set foot in a weight room before. I don't know what I'm doing at all. And he took me down to the little weight room at work and showed me how to bench press, showed me how to deadlift.
Can you get a little closer again?
Sorry. He showed me some just basic exercises to do, showed me what a set is, what a rep is, things like that, and how to be safe, just real basic stuff. And that got me started. And so I started working out at lunch. And then eventually, I started working out in the summers. And my body started to change. I started to lose a little bit of weight, and I started to have a little bit of muscles pop out. And my wife was really liking what she saw. And I was also, watching YouTube channels. And this is another thing that didn't exist in the 80s. I was watching YouTube channels, and I was, watching TV shows about strength and stuff like that on Netflix. I'd be up late watching The documentary about Arnold and all this other stuff, and it was she was annoyed at me one time. She's like, "It's all you ever talk about," but she liked what she was seeing. She liked that my body was changing, and I was happy with it. And then, so she got into fitness, and we both got trainers, and now that's kind of where the ball started. And we're both competitive athletes now. I do Scottish Highland Games. She's a competitive powerlifter, nationally ranked powerlifter, and she's a master trainer, works for a gym and everything else. And I'm ranked 30-something in the nation in lightweight Highland Games at the moment. And that's where we got started. It was just weight loss.
You're going to want to talk about Highland Games because I'm sure a lot of people don't know
Probably
that. But
no idea what that is. Okay.
Yeah, but it's super interesting. Like, you've shown me a few videos in class and stuff like that. It's just cool.
Yeah, it's as much about history and tradition as it is exercise. So it's not like CrossFit or kettlebells or something like that, where the whole sport is about the exercise, right? That's come about in the last 15, 20 years. Scottish Highland Games is over 1,000 years old, well over 1,000 years old. It really is caveman stuff. So we have 9 events. We have a heavy stone and a light stone, literally a stone, and it's exactly what you think it is. You take a rock and you throw it, right? And that's about as caveman a thing as you can do. Me throw a rock, you throw a rock. My rock go further than your rock, chump. And right, so it's caveman behavior. And then, so you got heavy stone and light stone. It's thrown very, very similar to shot put. The light.
Yeah, because shot put, you throw it from like the ear.
Right. Yeah. You throw it from back here, and the open stone, what we call the open stone, is 16 pounds, like a shot put is, and you can do all the same motions and things that you do with shot put. Braemar stone, which is named after the Braemar Castle, is 22 to 28 pounds. It's huge, huge rock, and you can't move your feet. It's just pow, Yeah, and that's fun to watch. And there's all the things that you expect, all the manly grunting and back hair and all the things that go into that, And everyone's got awesome beards and stuff, and it's all extremely manly.
But you're still wearing skirts.
It's kilts. So kilts is the traditional Scottish dress, and kilts have been mandatory, I think for 400 years in the games. So, like I said, a lot of it's about tradition. You can't be like, well, I really like my Nike shorts. No. This, you know what I'm saying?
A kilt.
Yeah, you're wearing a kilt. That's because this is an ancient sport. And so, we do as our forefathers did. You don't have to be Scottish.
Do you still wear underwear under the kilt?
Well, that is the athlete's choice. I wear neoprene, like compression shorts, like a football player.
So you do wear something.
Yeah, for sure. And there are people that.
Yeah, I've heard like the actual, like if you're really, really Scottish, that you're gonna.
Yeah, traditionally they had nothing on under them, but also traditional kilts are huge, heavy wool, and they don't fly everywhere. And whereas what we wear now, our athletic kilts are more like gym shorts, and so they, everybody would see your junk. But anyway, so we have heavy stone, light stone, then we have a heavy hammer and light hammer, which is similar to Olympic hammer, but it's literally a cannonball on a stick.
It does sound like stone, like caveman, like hammer.
Totally, just throwing a hammer. Yeah, you throw the hammer. Then we have weight for distance, which is an iron block on the end of a chain. It's just manly to even hold the thing, the iron chain block thing. And you throw it as far as you can throw it. And then we have our height events, weight over bar, which is exactly what it sounds like. You have a huge block of iron, you throw it over a bar, and the bar goes up every time. And if you throw it the highest, then you win. And then we have sheaf, which is actually a country fair event that it's this bale of like hay or rope, and you take a pitchfork and throw it as high as you can throw it. It's farm, it's farm work. And then there's the event that everybody knows. The signature event of the game is a caber toss, which caber is a Gaelic word for tree trunk, and we're quite literally throwing a tree trunk. It's you take a tree trunk and you try to flip it over, and it's very, very impressive. All of those, most of the cabers are usually around 17 feet, something like that, 120 pounds or so. You have to pick it up and balance it on one end and then throw it, and it's very, very, very difficult. That's all thrown events. It's and it's all caveman stuff. It's great.
It's all from Scotland, right?
Yes, it's a traditionally Scottish game. Yeah.
So you're like, are you family from there?
We're Scots-Irish. So there was a group of Scottish people that immigrated to Northern Ireland, and a great deal of those people immigrated to the United States, and that's how I got here. So a Scots-Irish people group is what that's called. Yeah. So it is neat to, it's very motivational for me to participate in the same sport that my ancestors would have done. And am I the greatest? No, of course not. I'm in my mid-30s and I'm 5'7", so of course I'm not like the greatest one out there. But it is really special to me.
It's like a personal thing.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, that's like if you're Mexican, like soccer's personal, you know. I mean, that goes back to the Aztecs, right?
Oh yeah.
Like that's not just like a fun sport on TV. That's part of who we are, right? And you know, Highland Games is the same way. It's part of who we are. It's part of our tradition, part of our culture.
The interesting thing about soccer, though, is that it's global, because it wasn't only the Aztecs.
For sure.
Association actually started in England in like the 1800s, but even before that, you had like tribes. I've heard people like tribes in Brazil and like the 1500s. They had like they played in cities like this. Like
Yeah,
this
that's cool.
field was like the size of a city.
Wow.
And they kicked around like a rock
Whoa.
or whatever. Yeah, it was like different. And then like the Asians had their own variation of soccer. Like the Africans had their own, but it was all like the same more or less, really.
Right, and it's evolved into what we
The
modern
English.
game of
Yeah, it was actually the British, I believe, that started like the association football, like playing on grass and that stuff.
right. That's cool. No, but it's neat. It's neat how sport is not.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's like the you know the Polish and the Swedish and the Lithuanians and stuff. All those strength sports. Strength sports is really 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 important to those.
Like Nordic people.
Yeah, Nordic peoples, the peoples that came from that for thousands of years. They've done feats of strength. It's been really really important to them, and so I'm glad. I hope they teach it in PE over there. I hope they get their kids into it because, like I said, it's. Should you be fit? Yes, absolutely, but it's important. Culture is really really important. You got to have a connection to the past.
For sure. Something I also find really interesting. Have you ever seen like the pictures of different pyramids all over the world?
Yeah.
And it's like before humans were even connected, because you had like the Egyptian pyramids, and you had like the Aztecs that weren't even discovered to like the.
Yeah, they didn't Google that. Right. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Oh man, this is an ancient alien question because I brought up ancient aliens before, and
Yeah,
I watched that episode where it shows all like the angles in the rocks and how it's the same all over the world.
But it's all perfect. It's
I honestly
as
don't know.
close as perfect as humans can get, and they didn't have anything, or at least we think
No
they
protractors,
didn't have.
laser levels. Yeah, for sure. All right, that's a good question. I don't know. I have no idea, and that's another thing that I think is really important for teachers, and really anybody. We live in a very arrogant society. People want to argue about all sort of stuff, and people are not comfortable saying I don't know. And I'll tell you, frankly, I don't know. I think it's really cool. I don't know. Maybe it was aliens. I have no idea. But
Why do you think we're like that?
I think it has to do with self-promotion. Again, this is oh man, this is gonna sound really kooky.
No, just go for it.
Okay, again, this is an evolutionary thing too.
It's what you believe in. So.
Right. Well, I think yeah, for sure. Yeah, everybody's got their own beliefs on this.
Of course.
But I think self-promotion is one of those evolutionary things too, right? It's the same reason that people wear gold watches or have nice clothes or whatever. Is your gold watch, is a $24,000 gold watch tell you any different time than a $24 Timex watch? No, it's the same time, right? But it's self-promotion. And why do we do that? To find mates, to intimidate other males, that sort of thing. So I think people say, people brag about whatever it is they think they know because it's the same self-promotion, right? You want to come across as intelligent, right? To other people and mates or potential business partners or other people, you want to seem intelligent because it doesn't, there's this animal self-promotion that we want to do. Whereas in an intellectual society, we need to be able to say, I don't know, teach me. right? That's how we actually move
believe
forward,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Is to say, I have no idea. Please, what do you know about it? Please tell me. That's where we need to get as a society, you know?
So you believe that wearing a $20,000 Rolex is a byproduct of evolution?
Totally. Totally. It's a show-off thing. It's self-promotion. Why else would you blow that kind of money on something that does the exact same functional job, right? Like the other day, I saw a Ferrari, driving 35 miles
Ferraris
an hour.
are cool.
They're cool. Sure, they're cool. But it was driving 35 miles an hour, just like my old Chevy truck with 250,000 miles on it. The speed limit stays the same. You know what I mean? Just because you got 800 horsepower or whatever doesn't change anything. But you go, oh, wow, that guy's got a Ferrari. That guy must be really important, right? It must be a football player or a CEO or something like that. You think highly of that guy instantaneously when you see material wealth, right? And I think that's an evolutionary holdover.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if imagine we're all cave people, and we see that one dude with his furs done down nice. He's got like a nice club, and he's got his caves looking like, oh, that caveman is bad. That's the one you want to be with right there. And so that's just like I said, I think it's caveman stuff. It's an evolutionary holdover. But
That's interesting, like, to look at it that way.
yeah.
How, like, just show offs, even on Instagram or
Oh, for sure.
social media.
Yeah. Why do women
Like
want to
how-
show off their booties or whatever on Instagram? The Instagram thought, like, that's no different than being out in front of the cave and be like, look at my booty. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's the same.
It really is.
Yeah. It's just animalistic behavior. I was watching. I was out throwing the other day, and anybody know what a scissor tail flycatcher is? No. It's a beautiful little bird. You should look them up. They're really pretty.
Look it up.
Anyway, there was like a no dumping sign, and there was a male scissor tail flycatcher that had landed there, and he was making its little call, and I was like, he's trying. Look at him. He's working. It's no different than firing up your dating app and being like, okay, let's see what's out there. You know what I mean? He's doing the same thing, and he's a bird. He's calling out where the female's at. Hey. Check out my booty, right? Because they got this big long tail on him. He's showing off his booty like Instagram thoughts. It's the same thing. It's animal behavior, and we are animals.
Why do you think, like, humans think it, like, differently? Because if you were to tell someone
Right,
that
you're an
they're
animal. No, I'm not. Yeah, no, I know. I always wondered that about kids, because kids think that they're not animals. And I don't know what they think they are. You know what I mean? Well, you're not a fungus. You're not a plant. You're not a bacteria. I don't know what. If you're not an animal, what are you then? I don't know. It's just really prideful. We feel like we're better than that. It's speciesism. It's the feeling that one species is superior to all others, and that's why in my class, I have a writing prompt that I do every year, where I ask kids, is mankind the pinnacle of evolution, the greatest species that ever was, or are we the most dangerous, invasive, exotic species? Are we just a species that has infected the whole world and destroyed all these other ecosystems? And, you get a whole lot of head scratches, right? Because people don't ever think, wait a minute. What do you mean I'm not the greatest thing in the world, right? Because that's really the way we think of ourselves. Like, but if I put you in a room with a tiger, well, you're inferior. You know what I mean? Like, if I put you at the bottom of the ocean with a blobfish, well, you're inferior, right? You're going to die. And that's just the reality. So are we the greatest? Are we the fastest? Are we the strongest, the hardest, everything else? No, we're not.
Yeah, we're none of that.
Right. Are we the most intelligent? I don't know. I mean,
Dolphins are.
dolphins and elephants and pigs. Pigs are brilliant. Pigs would really give you a run for your money and make you scratch your head of like how intelligent a creature can be. But if you look at what we do with our time, it's not a whole lot different than what our ancestors did, dragging their knuckles, pre-modern man, right? We're still trying to show off. We're still trying to be better than other people. We're still trying to brag about things. So, or if you look at the average, I mean, we sleep, we eat, we try to get paid, we do some kind of job, right?
Get food.
Right, yeah, exactly. Obtain food, obtain shelter, food, water, shelter. our greatest intelligence, are used for war, that sort of thing. I don't know. I think that we probably could be the most intelligent creature the world has ever known if people would use their brain. A lot of people just don't. They could be really brilliant, but they don't. They just choose not to. So, I don't know.
Maybe you get looked down upon because you failed in the school system. And the rest of your life, you're like, oh, I failed my 10th grade biology test. And my life is shit now.
Right. Yeah, no, that never happens.
Yeah, sure. After, though, after you realize that, wow, it didn't.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, after you meet like a couple thousand people and you go, oh, really? It had nothing to do with that STAR test. It has to do with your own personal choices.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's been a lot of really, really brilliant people that died of cocaine overdoses and heroin overdoses and end up in prison. And there's a lot of people that failed out of high school that have been successful business people. I've met a few of them that make a hell of a lot more money than I do. And they dropped out of school in 8th grade, right? And so whether you have a really brilliant life has to do with your own personal choices and, your own hard work and your own problem-solving abilities.
I feel like self-awareness as well.
Yeah, self-awareness. That's a loaded topic there, to be self-aware.
That's really like why I started this whole podcast. Because self-awareness is so important. And there's there's a million different ways to be successful.
For sure. And I don't think you really get to, where all that starts is asking each other questions. And so I'm really glad that you're doing this, because if we don't ask each other questions about what you think and what you believe and what you do, why you do things, I can't apply any of that to myself, right? So when somebody answers a question, I immediately have to think, is that what I'm doing? Or maybe I should think that way. Maybe I should do like that, right? And if we don't ever ask, then we're stuck in our ways. We're stuck in a rut. And we never get to update our beliefs and our actions and our motivations if we don't ever talk, right? And so you just have to be real and vulnerable and ask the questions.
I feel like we don't feel, or we do feel, but we don't feel vulnerable. Because now, like with social media going on, we're so connected, yet.
Right. You can be exposed. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're also, like, how do I say it? Like, there's so many people, yet we don't, like, we're having less human connection. Like, we're more connected on the internet or, like, on the screen.
Right.
But we're having less human interaction.
Right. One-on-one, real FaceTime interaction. Not FaceTime like the digital product FaceTime.
Yeah, like actual.
Yeah, actual talking. Yeah, for sure. And I think that, and I had a conversation with this friend. I know somebody whose marriage appears to be great on Facebook, but I know for a fact it's not great, right? And so I asked them about it, and they're like, "Well, of course we don't put anything negative on the internet, we don't put on right." And so, when you say when we're all connected digitally through Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, right? Whatever the digital platform is, what we're connected to is the false reality that we put up there, right? Is nobody wants to put their dirty laundry, put their crap online, right? And even if somebody that posts every day, they're going to take the most positive moment of that day and put it online, right? Or they're going to take a negative moment that happened today and they're going to try to make an inspirational quote out of it or some kind of thing, right? Nobody actually just puts their day-to-day life out there. The only people that are really exposed to your day-to-day life are your family and friends, right? And so when people are afraid to be vulnerable, they pull away from their family and friends, right? And they still have an online presence. A lot of people are like that. They're online every day, but they're still very lonely because they're not putting themselves out there to family and friends and what we would call community, right? Everyone has to have community. You need community. We're to reference Dr. E.O. Wilson, we're a eusocial creature. We're supposed to have a community, a tribe, a people, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
Right? A clan, to reference
Yeah, it also goes back to evolution. Because if you weren't with your tribe,
you were never solitary.
Yeah, right. If you weren't with your people, you'd get eaten by a lion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're not tigers. We're meant to have a group.
Right.
Absolutely. And we're meant to have accountability. That's the other thing. The fact is, when we're screwing up in our life, if we're drinking too much, we're eating too much, we're not sleeping enough, we're not working hard, we're being lazy, we're being closed-minded. We are supposed to have a people that say, get your life right. You need to be called out. That's another thing we don't do anymore, is we try to respect each other's, you do you, man, whatever floats your boat. Nah, that's really not how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to hold each other accountable.
Right.
And everybody, you can know somebody, drinks too much, right? But do you tell them? Right? You know somebody's overweight, but do you tell them? Probably not.
Right.
Right? Because we get so bent on respecting each other. But the fact is, when you really love somebody, you really care about somebody in your tribe, you're going to say something about it.
No, right. I tried to actually, but it's weird how it gets looked down upon when you're honest.
Yeah, it's tough.
I
It's
could
awkward.
tell someone that, hey, you're fat, you need to go work out, and then like everyone else in the room, they're gonna start calling you out. Like, why would you call him or her fat?
Right.
Like they're trying whatever it is.
That goes both ways. I mean, there is a sensitive
Yeah,
way.
it is a way.
Yeah.
It is a way you say, it, but it's still like you can tell that person that, hey, I don't mean this the wrong way, but I think you're fat and you should go lose some weight.
Absolutely.
And be healthy.
Absolutely. And that's yeah, and it helps to say, I care about you, I want you in my life, and I'm worried about the way you're going. You know what I mean? That you're going down a destructive path. And there's a great way to say it, but we absolutely do need to say,
we do.
And the other side of that coin is when people in our tribe, we don't give compliments. As I said earlier, we, as a society, we've gotten away from saying mean things to each other or what is perceived as negative, but we also don't give compliments. We don't celebrate when someone does something well. You need to pull that person aside and say, like, man, I'm really proud of you. You're doing great. I'm so happy for you. You have this new job, right? Or you got a raise at work, or you've lost some weight. We really need to celebrate those things more than we do, right?
Yeah.
So when somebody who's 300 pounds loses 10 pounds, so, well, they got a long way to go, right? No, don't say that. Tell them, hey, man, I'm glad you lost that 10 pounds. I keep it up. You're doing good. We need to tell each other those things. In the same way that if you go back to 300 pounds, you need to say, whoa, hey, fell off the wagon, right? Like, what can I do to help you get back to losing the weight? So you have to do both. If you don't show people you care by celebrating their success, they're really not going to care when you try to call them out on the negativity in their life, right? So you have to have both.
How do you think that would be in the animal world?
Celebrating success, you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
or even if it's, for example, like a kill or whatever, like they got a kill for the tribe or the pride, or the group.
Evolutionarily speaking, success is defined by survive and reproduce, right? And so, let's say a mother lion makes a kill and is able to feed her cubs, where her cubs go on to make their own kills and be successful, right, by populating. And so that is defined as success. Do they have the ability to say, do those baby lion cubs come back to the grandmother and say, I'm so glad that you taught my parents how to hunt and kill so I could be here and so that I could survive and reproduce? No, that probably doesn't happen. But as humans, we have the ability to do that. And so we need to, when your family and friends are successful, or if you look on your life and say, well, for instance, to go back to the question one of the first questions you asked me about growing up and kind of my childhood and how I decided to be in forestry. If my grandparents and great-grandparents had not had land in Mississippi where there was full of trees and wildlife, then I would not have had that place to develop, and to really love wildlife. So I thanked them for that. If my mom and dad had not been so successful in their engineering careers, I probably wouldn't have gone to college. So I thanked them for that. Like, that's really, really important. I don't take any of that for granted. And we have to tell each other in our tribe and our families and our friends, when success is there, we got to celebrate it.
Yeah, we really do.
For sure.
So it would be like a tribe thing, you would say.
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't talk, I mean, I don't know if you got, a neighbor across the street. Do you really, know about your neighbor's successes? Probably not. But your brothers, sisters, your family, you do know about their successes
Yeah.
because you're with them all the time. And that's what's such a dark thing about sibling rivalry, right? Is if siblings are allowed to not appreciate one another, then it's really, really toxic to the family, right? And so that's one of the things I tell my kids. Yeah, your baby brother, is he being kind of annoying right now? Yes. But he's also is it annoying that he wants to hold your hand? Yeah, it is. But remember, because he's a really sweet little kid, and we need to celebrate that, right? He's a really loving little child, and we need to celebrate that he wants to hold your hand. There's two ways to think about it. You know what I mean? And when you see success, you got to celebrate it. And you got to teach your kids that.
Yeah, I believe you do.
Yeah, for sure. Parenting is out of fashion these days. People don't teach their kids much. Kids are raised by cell phones and TV.
Oh, yeah, I was about to mention that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's sad. It's sad to see.
There's just so many people nowadays that, like, their parents, like, the dad's doing their own thing, whatever, and then that, like, the little kid on the iPad.
Totally. No, I ran into some young joggers the other day, and we started talking about health and fitness and things like that. And we were talking about kids, and they're like, "Oh, do you have any tips for getting a kid off the iPad?" And I was like, "Well, how old's your kid?" And they said, 2. I'm like,
What?
2? Like, you're bigger than her, right? Take it away. Turn it off. Don't charge it. You're enabling this. You have to be. You have to be enabling this deal where your kid is on the phone all the time or on the iPad all the time and won't talk to you or won't respect you. It's like, you chose that. Don't ask me what I can or what you should do. Take it away. Interact with the kid. And that's the dark side is like, well, why has that kid been on the iPad all the time? Because you wanted him to be out of your way and shut up. You wanted to do your own thing and not interact with the kid.
It's like those parents that say that they have a kid like eating a cookie or whatever, and they'll ask him they'll ask him why he's doing that, and they said, I don't know, he just always eats. Like, that's all he eats.
Right. Well, what are you buying then? Yeah, you're the one buying the groceries. Yeah, exactly. No, I let me ask you this. Do you think childhood obesity is rampant? It's a huge problem. And obesity in general is a huge health problem in the United States. Millions. What do we? Somebody look it up. What are we at? 40 million, over 40 million obese Americans, and I was one of them. So I know there's a problem, and as a teacher in the last 10 years, I mean, I've seen a rise of obese children. Do you think that's a form of child abuse, and should society step in?
I really believe that it is. Just because, I don't know, it's the way that we're, like, I don't know, it's just different for me because I'm not a parent.
Well, right.
Like, I wouldn't know, but my best answer would probably be that it's the way that parents are being nowadays, because now they're, like, the kids on the iPad instead of spending actual time with the mom or the dad.
Yeah. Childhood obesity is tough because
just obesity overall.
Yeah, it is.
But then again, if you're a child and you grew up eating candy, when you get older, it's going to be the same way. And like you said, in the 80s, that's all you did because you didn't know much.
Right. Yeah, no, we grew up on fast food because we didn't know how bad it was, right? All those studies hadn't been done because fast food was relatively new,
and I believe, new thing. Yeah, and I feel because in the 80s, they did that. So whenever they grow up and they're, now the parents are overweight, the kids are going to be the same way because they don't know. For sure. Because they live that way their whole life pretty much.
It seems normal.
Yeah, it seems normal.
Right. 70 million obese Americans. And we're at, 330 million citizens, and 70 million of them are obese. 39%. 39%. God, that is horrible.
And that's obesity, because there's a difference between being, like, just fat and being obese.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Obese is beyond being thick, being chubby. And that number doesn't include people that are relatively thin but have high cholesterol, heart disease, stuff like what we call skinny fat, right? Like people that are not healthy, that are still, 40% body fat, but they're not big, right?
Yeah.
So, man, 39%, that's dark. That's depressing. It's a good time to be in the fitness industry, though. Clearly, half of America needs a lot of help. So.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
But they don't ask for it.
Some do. You know. And
Oh yeah, some do. Of
some
course,
do.
but
That's another thing that talk about celebrating success. When you're in the gym and you see overweight people in the gym, that's great. That's great. What a wonderful thing to see. Is what's sad is when you go to the gym and it's full of fit people. You know, we need it to be full of fat people. We need those. We need it. I don't know if it's the cost of personal training or the cost of gym memberships or.
I mean, the cost of gym isn't even that bad. It's like
It's like $10 a month. Yeah, a lot of gyms are cheap.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't know what they're doing. You know, and
That's also another thing. But then
Right.
again, there's YouTube.
right, for sure. You can figure out something to do if you
I
really
figured
want.
out all of this using YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Well, it's hard to know what has to change, or maybe it's the social stigma, or big people feel embarrassed or whatever that they. And I can say that I'm personally really embarrassed. I'm really ashamed that I let myself get as big as I was a few years ago. Just 3 years ago. I mean, I was really big, and so. And I look back and I think, well, man, I can't believe I let it get that far. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are 300-400 pounds that think it's just gone so far now, right? What am I supposed to do? It's so far beyond, help. But I hope that we get to talk. It's kind of like mental health. I hope we get to a place in America where we can have these conversations and have a caring conversation with our family and friends that are obese and say, you need to get help, right? And same way with our family and friends that are struggling with depression or schizophrenia.
Yeah, I like how that's being a thing now. That's
oh man,
like
it's needed to be a thing for a long time.
Yeah, it really has.
And it's particularly with PTSD, with soldiers coming back. Man, it's becoming much more acceptable to talk about now. I wish it had been more acceptable to talk about after Vietnam, after Korea, after World War II, right? If we had known more about PTSD and how to care for our family and friends that have PTSD. We're learning so much more about it, and I wish we had learned it 40, 50 years ago. That would be a game changer for this country.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, for sure. Are we out of time?
No, we're just gonna start wrapping it up.
Mm-hmm.
So, you brought up the past in like the 80s, how that's been. Like,
Oh yeah, we've learned a lot.
Yeah, all of that's been, and then you've talked about evolution through most of this. What do you think's next?
For me, in terms of my career, or just for society?
We'll start with your career. What do you think is next for you?
I
'Cause
would
you have 3 kids, like they're
Yeah.
like the oldest one's 10, the
11
youngest one's
now, yeah.
11 now. Like they're soon gonna start being teenagers, and then
Right. Yeah. For me, I think my wife and I are having a lot of really good discussions about minimalism and learning to kind of buck the American consumerism system and to teach our kids how to not be materialistic and to live with less and to appreciate what they have and to appreciate the outdoors and freedom and not look for more and more and more material things and to not buy into the consumerist mindset of just if I'm not buying something or if I'm not making more to buy whatever, then I'm not happy, right? And so so that's kind of my personal life goal with my kids is to try to teach minimalism and show them that.
right.
For my career, I really want to start teaching new teachers, because I look back on the last 12 years and there were so many seasoned teachers that really invested in me, that really helped me get started and be the teacher I am today. And I'd like to start giving back to those teachers. For society, I really hope we get to a place where we can talk about mental health in a really positive way, and really start getting people the help that they need. Not of course veterans, but lots
Just
of people.
overall, yeah.
Yeah, just everybody. Everybody's gone through something. Everybody's had trauma in their life, really, and if we can't call it what it is, and if we can't deal with it, then it continues to be a plague on our society, right? You go up and down the street, ask anybody, you'll find people who were hit as a kid, or had an alcoholic parent, or were from poverty, right? Or things like that. That had nothing to do with war. And you're probably going to go up and down the street, and you're going to meet veterans who have nightmares and PTSD and flashbacks. And we've got to get help. It's got to be okay to say what we've gone through, and and try to help each other. It just has to.
That was a great message, and
I
it
hope
was
so.
great having you on here.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. I'll see everyone later.
All right. Peace.